The left is completely lawless, and they are openly breaking the law in a way that we've never seen in America before. We've already seen a preview of what this lawlessness looks like. We've seen it throughout the waves of violent protests in Ferguson, in Baltimore, and in Charlotte. We've seen it in the San Jose riots where the violence against Trump supporters was completely ignored and the police were just watching it happen. We've seen it in the waves of college protests like UC Berkeley, where police also do nothing to stop the violence, and a whole single arrest was made throughout all the UC Berkeley riot. The left has always been the defender of the lawbreaker by freeing historic amounts of criminals, by freeing illegal aliens who, not surprisingly, go on to murder again. Led by Barack Obama, the left's lawlessness has reached a new level. Not only do they defy our laws, which make them criminals, they actually stand there and pretend that they are the noble and virtuous group. But the left are allowed to break the law. With a value of subjective feelings at such a premium, anyone has the ability to claim themselves to be sheriff and decide on their own what the law is or isn't, and whether or not they need to follow the law. After all, slavery was once a law, so laws can be wrong, and since laws can be wrong, that means your own subjective feelings on what the law should be is above the law. This open defiance of our laws is everywhere among the left. Take, for example, federal immigration laws, which Obama and the left have been openly defying for years, and even now are encouraging states not to follow federal immigration laws.
They see liberty and individualism as somehow an impediment to radical egalitarianism. And the law is flexible and fluid. That's very dangerous. It's not absolute. The law is a means to a noble end. So if Obama is better than the rest of us and has a better vision, then he really doesn't have to follow the Obamacare mandate, or he really can go after Boeing, or he can give amnesty to 1.7 million illegal aliens because his intentions and his goals are supposedly much better than ours. That's very dangerous when you get away from the rule of absolute law. And then they dress it all up with this utopian caring, when in fact it's one of the most amoral, uncaring phenomenon in the world. It's bad for American poor. It destroys the concept of the rule of law. If all of you have to file a tax return on a particular date, is that a negotiable phenomenon? Can you say, I sort of kind of would like to pay it, but I really don't want to, as if an immigration law or an IRS law is something up for discussion? Who is to say, when you start destroying the law or the sanctity of the law, that you can pick and choose which other laws people have to follow? And we've seen that already with the erosion of federal immigration laws.
Picking what laws we choose to enforce is really an assault on the concept of rule of law. And we talked a little bit backstage about some of the things that this administration has done in just ignoring the law, like, oh, the law says this, well, we're not really going to do that. And I'm thinking No Child Left Behind, I'm thinking immigration law, but there's also, it speaks to the rule of law that you know, if you're executing the laws, you can't just say, hey, I don't feel like doing this.
Well, I think when we look around, the law has become fluid, and this is exactly what the founders were worried about, because they looked at Athens versus Rome. Rome was a constitutional republic. Athens was ruled what 51% of the people thought on any given day, and right after the founders expressed these worries, we had the French Revolution and this idea of fraternity and egalitarianism enforced by what 51% of the people want. That's not constitutional or consensual government. And so the idea again is that the law is not an abstract or a final or a legislative product, but it's predicated critical legal theory on what 51% are perceived to want and purposes of social justice. So if Eric Holder thinks that the Black Panthers may or may not have disrupted a polling booth, it won't matter because their aims are egalitarianism and fairness, and they have a history of oppression, he thinks, therefore the law is secondary.
The DOJ report stated, state and local governments may not prohibit or restrict workers from sharing information about a person's immigration status with federal immigration officials. But many liberals have decided those laws don't apply if they don't want them to apply. A New York City police union official criticized Democratic New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio and his police commissioner for sanctuary city protections granted to criminal aliens because it's illegal. The Democratic mayor vowed after Trump was elected that he would keep existing sanctuary city policies even though it's illegal. The New York City police union official said, there is a moral obligation as the chief law enforcement officer of the city. You yourself have to be able to follow the law. We don't get to participate in the laws that we want. That's total lunacy.
Our founding fathers made clear in the Constitution that immigration is a matter for the federal government. The federal government. Now, Article 1, Section 8, Subdivision 4 entrusts to the federal legislative branch the power to regulate citizenship. But today, in cities and states across this great nation, progressive mayors are prioritizing the protection of illegal criminals who not only violated our law to come here, but in addition, committed additional crimes while they were here. These mayors are directing that local police under their jurisdiction not share information about these criminal illegals and not assist the feds or ICE when they issue a hold or a detainer warrant so that they can be deported.
This value on subjective interpretation above law has cemented itself so deep into the minds of left-wing thought that there is no level of government that it doesn't permeate, whether it's openly defying legal obligations of duties like Sally Yates, or just breaking the law, committing perjury like DOJ lawyers, or other bureaucrats in Washington acting as saboteurs to our own federal government, or engaging in a treasonous act by leaking documents to left-wing media outlets.
To a lot of people, Sally Yates is some sort of hero. Those are the people who think that the administrative state, the federal government, should sabotage the president for the next 4 years. Of course she's a hero. They can't wait till the next Sally Yates does the next act of sabotage. So to those people who don't care about the law, don't care about borders, don't like the fact that President Trump is president, Sally Yates is a hero. To the other side of the aisle, she represents everything that's gone wrong the last 8 years. She represents bureaucrats imposing their will against the wishes of the American people, bureaucrats unhinged, bureaucrats using their power, their perch inside the federal government to enact their own ideological will. So Sally Yates represents the divide in the country between people who believe in big government at all costs and people who believe in limited government under the rule of law. I'm afraid that if Trump doesn't do something, that this is a behavior that is going to characterize his entire presidency and undermine it at every single turn. The Washington Post, for example, has set up a portal, right? How to leak documents to the Washington Post. There's people at the Justice Department who committed perjury in an Inspector General investigation. I know I've written about this person repeatedly. There's people who have lied to federal judges in the prosecution of New Orleans police officers, causing a federal judge in New Orleans to issue a 138-page opinion about the dishonesty of the DOJ lawyers. They're still working at the DOJ. There were DOJ lawyers who were using their credit cards to visit their mistress in Miami, and they got a buyout of like $40,000. That's how weak the ethics officers are when it comes to enforcing ethics rules against Democrats or ideological leftists inside the government. So these are the sorts of people who run these ethics shops, or ideologically driven lawyers who cannot be trusted. The Obama appointees in the Inspector General offices, from what I hear, have rewritten portions of reports that were not ideologically consistent with what they wanted the story to be out of the Justice Department. And so the ethics offices are essentially a sham.
We see more judges coming out and openly defying the law in the name of their own agenda, even letting convicted criminals escape deportation in our courtrooms.
U.S. Attorney Billy Williams says it's unacceptable that an illegal immigrant was allowed to elude ICE agents by exiting through a door typically only used by court officials. His condemnation stems from a case involving Didier Pancheco Salazar. ICE agents were there waiting for him by the door, but he never came out. Monica Herranz was on the bench acting as a court referee at the time.
U.S. Attorney Billy Williams said it was troubling that a person with the powers of a judge would help a criminal escape the law. When you're talking about the judicial system, whether it's federal or by state, you have an expectation that people are going to abide by the law and not take steps based on their own motivations, their own politics. Our own court systems, where liberals hold the gavel, have become systems that no longer enforce laws, but find new ways to justify breaking them, or just finding new interpretations of the same words so that they can impose their will regardless of what the law actually says. Under the umbrella of left-wing lawlessness, no longer is there even a need to justify why they ruled against the law. They just do it, and who cares? Let the media cover for them.
Those are two great examples, the Ninth Circuit and the Fourth Circuit decision in recent weeks. If you look at the Ninth Circuit, it's based in California. It's long been the most liberal court of appeals in the country. If you look at the decision of the Ninth Circuit and the decision of the California District Court, actually the Washington District Court that struck down, that enjoined the president's order, both decisions are utterly lawless. You know, the reason the Constitution gives judges life tenure is so they can be independent of political pressures and follow the law. I've read the district court decision. I've read the Court of Appeals decision. They don't even cite the controlling federal law. By statute, Congress has given the president the authority to suspend immigration, any class of immigration, if he deems it in the national interest. Now, any judge that was actually being a judge would begin with the statute, would look to the precedents, would interpret it. They don't even mention the statute. They just say, we don't like this policy.
Arguing that one can decide on their own which laws to follow nullify all laws. There is no law, according to the liberal who argues in favor of breaking the law with immunity and applause. The left is so lawless, they even fight for people breaking the law in the country illegally, voting in our elections. And when conservatives try to stop this from happening, the left fight it every step of the way.
Probably the biggest threat facing the integrity of American elections is non-citizen voting right now. It's something that's been swept under the rug for years. Nobody really thought it was possible, but we've gotten involved in a lot of litigation at the Public Interest Legal Foundation where we're finding non-citizens on the rolls. I have a stack this high on my desk of voter data from election officials about aliens who have been casting ballots. I've got their names, addresses. It's not a myth to me, it's real. These are real people. Now, a lot of it is they just get on the rolls through motor voter when they go to get a driver's license. All they have to do is say, are you a citizen? Yes, no. And they get on. If they say yes, there's no checks in most states. States that did try to do checks were stymied by the Obama Justice Department. They were stopped from checking citizenship. They were stopped from cleaning up voter rolls with non-citizens in Florida, for example. We're currently litigating in district court in DC a case involving states trying to clean up their voter rolls of non-citizens. And all the institutional left is against us. The League of Women Voters, Project Vote, Advancement Project, the Justice Department. Yes, the Justice Department actually refused to defend the federal agency that was responsible for doing the voting forms. You know, in Virginia, for example, I think is a real problem place. We've had to sue a bunch of election officials just to get the list of aliens they caught on the rolls. We've had to sue Chesterfield, City of Manassas, City of Alexandria, took them all to federal court to get them to give us the list of aliens that they found on the rolls. They won't even reveal this information, but under federal law, they have to. So we took them to federal court, we got the list, I've got paper this high on my desk of aliens who were on the rolls, of individual names. So you have all of these headwinds to election integrity, and then you have all of these groups saying that there's no problem. But they like it that way, because illegal votes tends to help the left. When you have thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of non-citizens voting, those are votes for Democrats.
But this false nobility is nothing but pure tyranny. The contract theorists, those whose teachings the American form of government was derived, all taught that the law must never be broken, that strength of the law is the only thing that keeps us away from the state of nature, therefore that risks and dangers must be accepted for the sake of the law. Once the law is broken with impunity, each man regains the right to any means he deems proper or necessary in order to defend himself against the new tyrant, the one who can break the law. These democratic tyrannical impulses that are masqueraded as compassion, this lawlessness at its core, is the promotion of the complete and total eradication of a free and civilized society. But if you can break one law because you arbitrarily decide that it's fine, then so can I, and so can the next person, and there is no law. The law being subjective is not law. Anyone who champions the open defiance of federal laws has no business ever telling you or anyone else what laws you should or should not follow, because if they don't have to follow the law, then I don't have to follow the law, and they also can't distinguish between the degrees of egregiousness in the violations of the law because they have effectively ruled that subjective interpretations are above law, and therefore my feeling of justification for my ability to break the law is just as valid as yours. The degree of the heinousness of the crime is only a matter of interpretation. Now that may sound ridiculous, and it is, but this is the logic of left-wing thought if you followed it all the way to the root. but going to the root of their line of logic is something liberals seldom do. Liberals have devoted their energy to arranging and packaging only the basic premises of their own logic, and let feelings take things from there. They never have to follow their own recipe all the way through. No substance is really needed, and the emotions and anger keep them busy enough that they can avoid thinking about the nothingness of their stance. The left-wingers' preferred mode of operation is not looking underneath the surface and allowing emotions, indignation, and commitment supplant substance. Self-assertion is the crucial element. It's about movement, not progress. Thus, determination, will, caring, commitment are the new virtues. So now that conservatives are in power, the new breed of liberal wills chaos. The best way to stop conservatives in power is to show people that when conservatives get into power, things fall apart. Promote lawlessness, mayhem, and anarchy.
Because it fits into their chaos narrative. The media will never acknowledge that this was a violent riot because they want to maintain the chaos narrative that the Trump administration is illegitimate, permanently in crisis, and unstable.